everybody, and welcome back to the Weekend Report here on the Nitro Corner. I am Paul the Nitro Skywers. It is now time for part 2 of our Weekend Report. We'll start off with the SmackDown Report, and then this week's Top 10, Nitro Top 10, and then a programming note for tomorrow. Let's start out with SmackDown from last night. It all started out with Edge coming out there, thanking the fans for coming out to tonight's show. Real emotional for Edge as it was in Canada, I think in Toronto this past week. He stated first that he was going to host the return of the Cutting Edge with Randy Orton and Mark Henry as his guests. It was going to be a one-night-only deal for Edge and the Cutting Edge. Then Cody Rhodes comes out there, interrupts, stating that because he beat Orton this past Monday night, that he deserves a title shot. Well, Edge was about to leave the ring because he felt bored and was about to fall asleep. Very funny there. And Cody Rhodes got upset and got into a tirade saying how he's going to kick his butt and all that stuff. When Ted DiBiase shows up in incognito, reveals himself, and then proceeds to lay out Cody Rhodes. And now because of that, Ted DiBiase will meet Cody Rhodes for the Intercontinental title at Night of Champions. Former friends battling it out. Should be an interesting battle. Next up, in a revenge match, Daniel Bryan defeated Sin Cara by disqualification as Sin Cara refused to break on the ropes as he had Daniel Bryan upside down in the corner. When all of a sudden, a second Sin Cara shows up and confronts Sin Cara. Boy, doesn't that remind you of a classic match of the week? I think it does. Does Mr. Wrestling versus the fake Mr. Wrestling... does Mr. Wrestling 2 versus the fake Mr. Wrestling 2 conjure up any memories? Well, this is kind of like the same idea from what I see with these two Sin Caras. Who knows? Next up, Beth Phoenix defeated AJ in a squash match. Now Beth Phoenix has some momentum heading into Night of Champions this Sunday. Next up, Sheamus continues his tag team success as he teamed with Justin Gabriel to defeat Christian and Wade Barrett this past week on SmackDown. Great win for that team. Next up, the Great Khali defeated Heath Slater by disqualification because Jinder Mahal interfered, but he got laid out from a Khali chop this past Friday night on SmackDown. Good night, Mr. Mahal. I like that. Next up, in another captain's match, R-Truth defeats one half of the tag team champions of Air Boom, Evan Bourne. So it looks like The Miz and R-Truth definitely have the momentum and probably the number on the tag team champions as they head into Night of Champions tomorrow night on pay-per-view. And then, in the Cutting Edge, Randy Orton and Mark Henry had their face-to-face confrontation, even though Teddy Long emphasized the no-contact rule once again during the Cutting Edge. Well, it got really heated when Orton called Mark Henry a big, fat failure. Ooh, not a good thing when Mark Henry's instituting his Hall of Pain. Well, Edge informed both of them when he decided, I'm going to go over here, go through the ropes. The Cutting Edge is over. That means the no contact rule's over, and they went at each other. Wrestlers try to break it up. That turned out to be a downfall for Randy Orton as he gets laid out again by the master of the Hall of Fame, Mark Henry. And that ended SmackDown for this week. SmackDown was a pretty interesting show with the double Sin Caras. And, of course, Mark Henry laying out Randy Orton once again in the return of Edge for one night only on SmackDown. So, all in all, it was a very good show this past Friday night on SmackDown. And now, excuse me, it is time for the Nitro Top 10 for this week. Some new entries into the Top 10, so let's begin. Number 10 this week is the return of Samoa Joe. He defeated Matt Morgan in the submission match this past Thursday on Impact. Number 9, returning to the top 10 for since about 3 weeks, Daniel Bryan, he got a disqualification victory over Sin Cara, or I should say the imposter Sin Cara. Who is it? But Daniel Bryan is victorious. He's at number 9 this week. Excuse me. Number 8, dropping down 2 spots this week. The number 8 is the Celtic Warrior Sheamus. He won 2 tag team matches this past week. We'll be very interested to see where Sheamus goes, as a singles wrestler in the WWE. Number 7, making his return to the Nitro Top 10, Mr. Anderson. He won the triple threat match by disqualification at No Surrender. But he did not win the TNA World Heavyweight title. Congratulations to Mr. Anderson for the let's get Mr. Anderson. Oh, I'm sorry. Editors know that was a mistake. Okay, getting back on task. Number 7 is Mr. Anderson. He nearly beat Kurt Angle, I should say, at No Surrender, but it didn't happen. Number 6 is the Icon Sting, returning to the Nitro Top 10, even though he officially lost the triple threat match to Kurt Angle at No Surrender. He defeated the Nature Boy Ric Flair this past Thursday on Impact to have a chance at Hulk Hogan at Bound for Glory in October. Making her return to the top 5, number 5 this week, returning to the Nitro Top 10, Velvet Sky. A lot of big things going on with Velvet. She qualified for the Fatal 4-Way at Bound for Glory by beating her former tag team partner Angelina Love, and she is currently campaigning to be on Dancing with the Stars next week. For a little more information about that, go back to part 1 of the weekend report under the Nitro Opinion. Next up, dropping 3 spots from his number 1 spot last week, is the World Heavyweight Champion, Randy Orton. He gets laid out not once but twice this week as he lost to Cody Rhodes on Monday Night Raw after distractions from Mark Henry, and then Mark Henry laying out Randy Orton after the cutting edge this past Friday. Orton better get his act together if he's going to survive Mark Henry. Speaking of Mark Henry, keeping his spot at number 3 this week, the world's strongest man, Mark Henry, as he laid out Randy Orton and cost Orton a match against Cody Rhodes Monday night on Raw, and of course laying him out this past Friday on SmackDown. Jumping up 5 spots this week, the number 2 wrestler is the Intercontinental Champion, Cody Rhodes. Cody scored a big win over Randy Orton this past Monday on Raw, but unfortunately for Cody, he got laid out by Ted DiBiase this past Friday on SmackDown. And now, we have a brand new number 1 wrestler in the Nitro Top 10, and it is Robert Roode of Beer Money. Bobby Roode defeated Bully Ray in the finals of the Bound for Glory Series to win the Bound for Glory Series with 59 points. That means he'll wrestle Kurt Angle at Bound for Glory for the World's Heavyweight title. And then he defeated Kazarian, a member of Fortune, this past Thursday on Impact. Congratulations to Robert Roode, a member of Beer Money, the number 1 wrestler in the Nitro Top 10 for this week. Now, on a programming note, tomorrow on the Nitro Corner, not only will you get the classic match of the week, but once again, it will be time for the booking sheet, this time for WWE's Night of Champions. That will be tomorrow on the Nitro Corner. Until then, this is Paul the Nitro Skyver saying, so long everybody. We'll see you tomorrow on the Nitro Corner.